Good afternoon, everyone. It's Kirsten from Kirsten Voss Coaching, and I'm here for a Thursday Spa Business Break where we're talking about your spa business. And in particular, this month is all about your staff, your staffing, all the things that can go wrong and do go wrong, and the places where in your leadership where you likely need some support to have a stronger team. So today's topic is about staff retention, and possibly you may have some leadership approaches or one of these approaches that could be tanking your staff retention. Now, if you've been wondering why your staff are leaving, why you can't seem to keep them, or why you can't seem to hire or keep talent, then there is, that's a red flag for you to perhaps there is some work that needs to be done, not just in your leadership, but maybe also with your own mindset. Okay, so here's the thing. Before I get into 3 different leadership approaches that can be problematic for your staff retention, it's the reason why I'm talking about this is because it's critical that you understand your part of the issue with your team, because it's all too easy to play the blame game, to blame a new hire, to blame one of your longtime team members who is maybe not behaving properly or maybe has shifted their behavior and you don't understand it. It's absolutely critical that you as a leader first see where you play a part in this issue. Because you do play a part. We all play a part in our interpersonal relationships, and you can't just say, oh, it's all their fault if you haven't actually done any digging into what the actual issue is, and to also dig into what is your part of this issue, because you probably do have a part in it. So let me get on to the 3 types of leadership approaches that might be tanking your staff retention. So the first approach that really does not help with your team retention is the hands-off approach. And this has been pretty common in the spa industry since I've been an esthetician, and I got started about 25 years ago, and it was really when the spa industry was in its infancy stage. There were always lots of aesthetic little studios, but the whole spa concept was new. And so I've been around a long time, and I've seen kind of what has happened with leadership and the different aspects of leadership. And having this hands-off approach as the owner and leader of a spa was quite common, and I still see it today. And what that means is you probably think that recruiting and hiring is kind of the biggest part of your job in terms of bringing on new team members. But that's really just half of it. The other half of your responsibility is to have an organized training program to run a new team member through, so that everybody is on the same page as far as what's expected of them in terms of team culture, as well as what's expected of them for their own job description and service protocols. So having a hands-off approach would look like, okay, I've done my recruiting work, I've done my hiring work, I've probably shown them, put them through orientation, showed them how to do a few services of our signature services. But the hands-off approach is about, well, they should know what they're doing, and I don't have time to babysit them, so I really just expect them I can put them on the floor and they take clients and everything should run tickety-boo. Well, that approach very rarely works, and if it does work, you just happen to be lucky that you found a staff member who happens to be a go-getter, who happens to have their own strong leadership, and who happens to also want to work in alignment with the way that you do business. So if that's happened with you and you're like, oh yeah, I've had that, that's no problem, I should have that again, it's usually a one-off. So having this hands-off approach to your leadership with your team is very problematic. It means that you're not valuing more in-depth training. You're not valuing what coaching and supporting your team members do. And so, of course, there's team members that if they're feeling like they're just not getting enough direction or guidance or support, they're not interested in working there. So the second approach to leadership that I've seen is the hot mess approach. We all have a few friends that are hot messes. You know, they kind of blow into a room and then everything's in a tizzy, and you know, there's always some sort of drama going on. And for your staff members, having a hot mess as a leader is really frustrating, especially if you are a team member that is talented, that has experience, and really just wants to get to work, working with the clients and working towards the spa goals to help grow their own career. But if they have a hot mess boss, that's not very supportive, and it's likely that you're not going to keep the talent. And in my experience, usually like attracts like, and sometimes we end up with other hot messes in our spa, and so that whole thing can just be an absolute gong show. All right, the third approach that I wanted to talk about today is the dictatorship approach. And that is somebody who is probably really organized, very clear about what their goals, what their vision is for their business, very clear about how they want things done. They may even have all their protocols done. They'll likely have your training program completed, and it's solid. However, it's kind of moving over to the dark side of being highly organized and high achieving, and that's moving into that kind of dictatorship style. And it doesn't mean that dictatorship where, you know, they're yelling at you, and of course that's not really any fun to work with. Why would they stay? But even if a dictatorship approach is more like micromanaging, staff who are talented, who want to work like as a career within your business, if they feel like they're constantly being micromanaged, then again, that's really frustrating for them. Now, I know that whole micromanagement piece can be, there's a little piece in there that can be confusing, both to an employer and to an employee. And that is, well, as the leader of this spa, I want to make sure that all the details are being taken care of. And so sometimes people get mixed up about just following through versus micromanaging. Now, we have to let our teams, we have to train them, we have to let them practice, we have to test them afterwards. But micromanaging is adding that extra level of, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And not giving a level of trust to that team member to allow them to sort that out themselves. You've given them the protocols, you've given them the training, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for them to, sometimes they need to fail a little bit, course correct, and get back on it. However, there's also that other flip side where a team member who isn't actually that great of a team member, who doesn't want to, who kind of has their own ideas about things, they can sometimes criticize owners for being micromanagers when that's not really the case. It's just, you might have a team member who just doesn't like to be corrected or told, you know, this is how we do things, and they can kind of flip it back on you and criticize you for being micromanaging. That's not really the case at all. So it's really important to determine if you think you might be slipping into that dictatorship role. It's really important to determine, okay, if I'm hearing complaints about me being a micromanager from team members, how much of that is true? And that's where that self-awareness piece has to come in. That piece of lowering your own, allowing yourself to be a little vulnerable with yourself. You don't have to have this conversation with a team member, but having that conversation with yourself, am I actually micromanaging? Am I being harder on them than I actually need to be? Can I give them a little bit more space to allow them to work in the realm that I've created for them? They've got the structure, they've got the instructions. Maybe I can just leave them a little bit to sort it out on their own because they have everything that they need, and allow them to come to me. So it ends up being, sometimes you have to sort out and really think about what exactly is happening, because we're human. We all come with our own baggage, and if you're in that place where you're struggling with your staff retention, again, going back to that personal awareness, what part did I play in this? And really, what is actually the problem? Now, normally what actually the problem is has to do with being organized, having a structured training and coaching program, having structured meetings, being consistent. Now, that's why that hot mess owner is so frustrating, because sometimes they come up with great ideas and they're like, oh, now I'm going to do this. We're going to do this at the spa. But then they flip it around and, 2 weeks later, oh, we're not going to do that. We're going to try this instead. So much of your staff retention has to do with being calm, being self-aware, being organized, and also making sure that you've got opportunities to listen to your team members. That's why having ongoing coaching, having one-on-one meetings monthly to go over their goals, go over what support that they need, have a little chat about what's working, maybe what's not been working so well this month. That allows you to have a more collaborative approach with your leadership. And that way your team feels heard, they feel respected. There's a mutual respect when we're working together. And quite frankly, when we're working together, we can get quite a bit farther, faster than if we're just trying to white knuckle it and plow through it on our own. So staff retention, there's lots of pieces in here that make a difference in how your staff are retained. Of course, there's compensation. Of course, there's company culture. But all of it really does start with your leadership as the owner. What kind of leader are you? What kind of leader do you want to be? Maybe you're not happy with the way that you're leading. Maybe you just actually don't really know where to go with your leadership from here. Those are all really common. Questions to ask as entrepreneurs in our own leadership. So if you're struggling with your leadership, if you feel like you are either the total hands-off approach and you know that this is not working, if you are a hot mess and thinking, oh my God, I gotta get my shit together, and if you're ready to get it together, and if you maybe are kind of worried, maybe I might be a little bit on the dictatorship approach, then it's time to start shifting that, and it's very possible. There's lots of leadership books out there to read. You can find yourself a mentor. You can work with somebody like me who is a business coach. There's all sorts of ways that you can start shifting your leadership into something that's stronger and helps your staff retention. Because quite frankly, when we have strong staff retention and they're happy, that means our guests are happy. And that means that that's all great for all our business outcomes. So if you have any questions about leadership, if you have any questions about staff retention, feel free to pop it in the comments or send me a direct message. I'd be happy to help. We'll see you next week on our Thursday Spa Business Break.